Chapter 7 of An Old-Fashioned Girl. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jeanette Seelig. An Old-Fashioned Girl by Louisa M. Alcott. Chapter 7. Goodbye. "Oh, dear, must you really go home Saturday?" said Fan, some days after what Tom called the grand scrimmage. "I really must, for I only came to stay a month, and here I've been nearly 6 weeks," answered Polly, feeling as if she had been absent a year. "Make it 2 months, and stay over Christmas. Come now, do," urged Tom heartily. "You are very kind, but I wouldn't miss Christmas at home for anything. Besides, Mother says they can't possibly do without me." "Neither can we. Can't you tease your mother and make up your mind to stay?" began Fan. "Polly never teases. She says it's selfish, and I don't do it now much," put in Maud with a virtuous air. "Don't you bother Polly. She'd rather go, and I don't wonder. Let's just be as jolly as we can while she stays, and finish up with your party, Fan," said Tom, in a tone that settled the matter. Polly had expected to be very happy in getting ready for the party, but when the time came she was disappointed, for somehow that naughty thing called envy took possession of her, and spoiled her pleasure. Before she left home she thought her new white muslin dress with its fresh blue ribbons the most elegant and proper costume she could have, but now, when she saw Fanny's pink silk with a white tarlatan tunic and innumerable puffings, bows, and streamers, her own simple little toilet lost all its charms in her eyes, and looked very babyish and old-fashioned. Even Maud was much better dressed than herself, and looked very splendid in her cherry-colored and white suit, with a sash so big she could hardly carry it, and little white boots with red buttons. They both had necklaces and bracelets, earrings and brooches, but Polly had no ornament except the plain locket on a bit of blue velvet. Her sash was only a wide ribbon, tied in a simple bow, and nothing but a blue snood and the pretty curls. Her only comfort was the knowledge that the modest tucker drawn up round the plump shoulders was real lace, and that her bronze boots cost $9. Poor Polly, with all her efforts to be contented and not to mind looking unlike other people, found it hard work to keep her face bright and her voice happy that night. No one dreamed what was going on under the muslin frock, till Grandma's wise old eyes spied out the little shadow on Polly's spirits, and guessed the cause of it. When dressed, the 3 girls went up to show themselves to the elders, who were in Grandma's room, where Tom was being helped into an agonizingly stiff collar. Maud pranced like a small peacock, and Fan made a splendid curtsy as everyone turned to survey them. But Polly stood still, and her eyes went from face to face with an anxious, wistful air, which seemed to say, "I know I'm not right, but I hope I don't look very bad." Grandma read the look in a minute, and when Fanny said with a satisfied smile, "How do we look?" she answered, drawing Polly toward her so kindly, "Very like the fashion plates you got the patterns of your dresses from. But this little costume suits me best." "Do you really think I look nice?" And Polly's face brightened, for she valued the old lady's opinion very much. "Yes, my dear, you look just as I like to see a child of your age look. What particularly pleases me is that you have kept your promise to your mother, and haven't let anyone persuade you to wear borrowed finery. Young things like you don't need any ornaments but those you wear tonight: youth, health, intelligence, and modesty." As she spoke, Grandma gave a tender kiss that made Polly glow like a rose, and for a minute she forgot that there were such things as pink silk and coral earrings in the world. She only said, "Thank you, ma'am," and heartily returned the kiss, but the words did her good, and her plain dress looked charming all of a sudden. "Polly's so pretty it don't matter what she wears," observed Tom, surveying her over his collar, with an air of calm approval. She hasn't got any boitelles to her dress, and I have, said Maud, settling her ruffled bands over her shoulders, which looked like cherry-colored wings on a stout little cherub. I did wish she'd just wear my blue set. Ribbon is so very plain, but as Tom says, it don't much matter. And Fanny gave an effective touch to the blue bow above Polly's left temple. She might wear flowers. They always suit young girls, said Mrs. Shaw, privately thinking that her own daughters looked much the best, yet conscious that blooming Polly had the most attractive face. Bless me, I forgot my posies in admiring the bells. Hand them out, Tom. And Mr. Shaw nodded toward an interesting-looking box that stood on the table. Seizing them wrong side up, Tom produced 3 little bouquets, all different in color, size, and construction. "Why, Papa, how very kind of you!" cried Fanny, who had not dared to receive even a geranium leaf since the late scrape. "Your father used to be a very gallant young gentleman, once upon a time," said Mrs. Shaw with a simper. "Ah, Tom, it's a good sign when you find time to think of giving pleasure to your little girls." And Grandma patted her son's bald head as if he wasn't more than 18. Thomas Jr. had given a somewhat scornful sniff at first, but when Grandma praised his father, the young man thought better of the matter, and regarded the flowers with more respect, as he asked, "Which is for which?" "Guess," said Mr. Shaw, pleased that his unusual demonstration had produced such an effect. The largest was a regular hothouse bouquet of tea rosebuds, scentless heath, and smilax. The second was just a handful of sweet peas and mignonette with a few cheerful pansies, and 1 fragrant little rose in the middle. The third a small posy of scarlet verbenas, white feverfew, and green leaves. Not hard to guess. The smart one for Fan, the sweet one for Polly, and the gay one for Pug. Now then, catch hold, girls." And Tom proceeded to deliver the nosegays with as much grace as could be expected from a youth in a new suit of clothes and very tight boots. "That finishes you off just right, and is a very pretty attention of Papa's. Now run down, for the bell has rung, and remember not to dance too much, Fan. Be as quiet as you can, Tom, and Maud, don't eat too much supper. Grandma will attend to things, for my poor nerves won't allow me to come down." With that Mrs. Shaw dismissed them, and the 4 descended to receive the first batch of visitors, several little girls who had been asked for the express purpose of keeping Maud out of her sister's way. Tom had likewise been propitiated by being allowed to bring his 3 bosom friends, who went by the schoolboy names of Rumple, Sherry, and Spider. "They will do to make up sets, as gentlemen are scarce, and the party is for Polly, so I must have some young folks on her account," said Fanny, when sending out her invitations. Of course the boys came early and stood about in corners, looking as if they had more arms and legs than they knew what to do with. Tom did his best to be a good host, but ceremony oppressed his spirits, and he was forced to struggle manfully with the wild desire to propose a game of leapfrog, for the long drawing-rooms cleared for dancing tempted him sorely. Polly sat where she was told, and suffered bashful agonies, as Fan introduced very fine young ladies and very stiff young gentlemen, who all said about the same civil things, and then appeared to forget all about her. When the first dance was called, Fanny cornered Tom, who had been dodging her, for he knew what she wanted, and said in an earnest whisper, "Now, Tom, you must dance this with Polly. You are the young gentleman of the house, and it's only proper that you should ask your company first." "Polly don't care for manners. I hate dancing, don't know how. Let go my jacket and don't bother, or I'll cut away altogether," growled Tom, daunted by the awful prospect of opening the ball with Polly. "I'll never forgive you if you do. Come, be clever and help me, there's a dear. You know we both were dreadfully rude to Polly, and agreed that we'd be as kind and civil to her as ever we could. I shall keep my word, and see that she isn't slighted at my party, for I want her to love me and go home feeling all right." This artful speech made an impression on the rebellious Thomas, who glanced at Polly's happy face, remembered his promise, and with a groan resolved to do his duty. "Well, I'll take her,